Good evening, everybody, for our April meeting, the Ag Commission. Start off with, we're going to start out with a report from our UNH capstone people. Alberto, I don't know if you want to start the lead on this?
Yeah, the floor is yours, so you may want to sit there before the mics or there at the stand there at the podium.
Thank you. How's it going?
Right, if it's helpful, they can grab one of those chairs and take the mic from the podium and just set it on the table there if they like.
Mic there.
Yeah.
Do you want us to sit?
Yeah, but just talk against the podium.
Oh, okay. We'll just.
I sure do. Sort of wipe that property off.
Hello. I'm Josephine Demerit.
I'm Anna Macaroni.
I'm Fiona Flaherty.
I'm Brett Schultz.
So this is our survey results from your survey, and at the end we'll have our recommendations. So we're going to go through each question, and then at the end it'll be culmination. So for the whole survey, we had 151 responses when we looked at the data last week, and here's a little distribution map of where all the responses were from, and the bigger circle has more responses. So all across Durham, one seemingly in Madbury, which is funny. So question 1 was, do you currently grow a portion of the food your household consumes? So out of 151, 79 said yes, 57 said no, 15 had no response, and then those percentages are out of 51. So 52% of people currently grow a portion of their food that their household consumes. Question 2 was if you had said no to question 1, and then the reasons why you don't grow food for your household's consumption. So these were all the reasons, and knowledge and land, or land is the greatest barrier, I guess, and knowledge is second, and tools and money come in tying for third. And then question 3, if residents in your neighborhood expressed a willingness to combine resources and grow food, would you be interested in participating? 100 out of 151 said yes, so 66%, which is a lot. And so 27 said no, and 24 had no response.
So then question 4 asked what resources people would be most willing and able to contribute. And time was the highest resource at 76% of respondents saying they could contribute time. That was followed by money and tools. So just under half of people said they could contribute those. And then this shows that most people were neutral regarding the statement, welcome to Durham, rooted in local food. So 42 people felt neutral. 42% of people felt neutral about this statement, and then 32% moderately agreed. But then over half of people said that they would like to see more residents in Durham producing food, which was 53% of people said that they strongly agree with the statement.
That's awesome.
All right, and then question 7 was all about what kind of food people wanted to see or what people would be most apt to grow. And as expected, fruits are at the top with 80 people saying they'd be interested in seeing vegetables grown around Durham. And then question 8 was all about if you'd be interested in participating more in the initiative, and we got 54 responses. And then these are just some additional comments from our, free space, so you guys could take a quick look at what people said. Yeah. Somebody said not enough information, so we'll have to do something about that. And then here.
So definitely the survey allowed us to gain a lot of takeaways on what the perception of local ag looks like in Durham and what are the main limitations. Obviously there are some biases just given the fact that it was a random survey, and there was some non-response bias in that if someone received the survey or received the mailing invitation, they didn't necessarily respond. With that being said, we can't use the data to make broad generalizations on what folks in Durham want, but definitely the survey has a lot of great insights. I mean, going back to question 8, there's 54 residents that want to learn more about how they can grow food cooperatively in Durham, which is an email list that we can definitely use as we try to create some framework regarding that. With that being said, our first recommendation is to really take this survey data, and after gaining a better understanding of the fact that land is a primary constraint that's affecting people's abilities to grow their own food, paralleling that with frameworks that other towns in the state and beyond have used. That's something we're covering a lot in our paper, but finding opportunities and the ability to use potentially town land to offer land for folks to grow their own food, while also addressing the second most common limitation, which was knowledge, which is something else that the commission can definitely help tackle. And with that too, I think another important part of the work this semester was focused on community engagement and also just making sure folks are educated, again, addressing that knowledge issue. And I definitely think that engagement piece can be more broad than educating folks on how they can grow their own food. I know like the bookmarks are a great example, right? The bookmarks are all centered around how folks can have a more bee-friendly garden, not necessarily growing their own food. And I feel like with an initiative like that, that really begins to spark people's interest, which definitely affect the survey. And with that being said, this has been a fun project this semester. I can definitely say I learned a lot. I think I can speak for everyone else. So really excited to have a discussion on the results, and thank you for your time.
Brett, excuse me, could I get a copy of the PowerPoint? Can you
Yes.
send it to me? Could be a PDF, doesn't have to be the PowerPoint itself, whatever.
Yeah.
That would be helpful. We
Definitely.
would include that with the minutes to the meeting.
Yep.
Anybody around the table have any questions for him?
I just want to thank you guys.
Yeah, that's
Great
great.
job.
Yeah.
Kind of insightful stuff, I think.
I have a quick comment. I also have a code to analyze the data, so if you want to look at, or keep the survey open and you have more data in the future, you can just run that code on the data and it'll give you the same results.
One of the things that you
Yeah.
did, excuse me, that you told me, and most of the people here don't know about, is you set up a table at the library and, interviewed people. Could you provide us some of the insights that you got from those interviews?
Yeah, I'd say a majority of the insights we gained parallel with the survey. I'd say the biggest surprise is that I think everyone that we interviewed that day hadn't heard about the survey, so we're definitely able to get some responses, but I think the conversations were pretty worthwhile. Really, it was the number one issue that we heard from those conversations, just access to land. And knowledge as well, but again, the issue is, I think, more deeply rooted in that a lot of folks don't have the land necessary to grow their own food in Durham.
I wonder, though, if those two things are linked.
Yeah.
The thought that you
Yeah.
don't have enough land because you don't have the knowledge to understand that maybe you do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing too is if we're talking, I mean, they're obviously thinking about just growing vegetables.
Right.
But the other option is to raise chickens or some kind of livestock as well. And you don't have to have, 8 hours of sun to do that. So that's another option that I think probably most people don't even consider,
Would it be possible just to zip through a couple of the slides, maybe start at the beginning and I can Yeah. Um, This is almost like a self-selecting question. People probably would be more inclined to participate in the survey if they did. So I think the fact that 52% said, yeah, I do, is an indication that they're probably going to fill out this questionnaire. That's not a criticism, it's just, it is a bias.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what we saw with the non-response. Non-response bias was that people who grow their own food are going to be more in tune with the Durham Agricultural Commission, and also from question 4, what people would say that they could contribute. Time was up there, and people that had the time to fill out the survey would obviously say they have time.
Yeah, Brett, maybe who's ever got it. Could you go to the next one? 2? These are all, I guess, reasonable criteria. It's interesting that land and knowledge are the highest. Can't do much about land, but certainly knowledge would be an opportunity for improving people's involvement
I'd say
that are
one,
not otherwise growing food.
yeah. I'd say one takeaway we had from the in-person interviews, linking back to your point, is like I feel like they can be both linked to an issue of like awareness. It's awareness of what your land can do for you, because I do think people don't estimate correctly the amount of land they actually need to grow their own food, and the other alternatives such as chicken.
Say it the other way, how little land they need to
Yeah.
grow their own food.
The other point I would make, and I'm not sure where it fits in there, people who do have gardens, it's part of their lifestyle, whether it's a flower garden, a vegetable garden, herb garden, or whatever. It's not related to time, land, knowledge, tools, money, interests, maybe interests,
Yeah,
but
interest.
this is who we are and what we do. It's some people are musically inclined, artistically inclined, some have a green thumb. I'm not sure that was captured in those responses, but yeah, I think it's hard to gauge. Okay, maybe number 3?
Yep.
I don't see any clumps there, do you? In other words, 3 or 4 people who all live in the same area said, yeah, my neighbor, I mean, those are pretty spread out.
Yeah, the distribution data, can give you a little bit of an insight. However, it's not statistically, not relevant, supported with the distribution. But you can kind of get a sense of where, at least, just kind of gauging yeses and nos.
So the bigger dots indicate a cluster of people?
Yes, more
Okay.
people in that area.
All right, so there are some clusters then?
It just means more responses, not more clusters.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah,
it's
there's
just
more
more
responses.
responses came from
Okay.
that area.
All right. But it could, to your point, it could mean that they are people who are all gardeners and, you know.
Well, I think there are some. I mean, I've got neighbors and we share, but it's not like we're growing to barter. And combining the resources, I'm not sure that's a part of it either, but again, okay, number 4. Yeah. It's time. That's the big one. And, okay, if you do this, what else are you not going to do that you already are busy? If you're raising kids or struggling with the economy, or we're not talking politics here, but I mean, time is tough.
No, this is
No,
not a
time
constraint, this is what they're willing to
They're
give.
willing
They're
to
willing to
contribute.
contribute 76%.
Yeah.
76 are willing to contribute time.
Which I saw that as a
I thought
great
that was
surprise.
good, yeah.
I was actually very surprised.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the money
And-
too.
And money as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
What can you contribute? I'm sorry, I misread.
I think, clearly we're missing the land component and the knowledge component, obviously.
Yeah. To me, time is a constraint. I
Well-
misread.
I think that the knowledge thing is, that's something we need to take seriously, because it might then impact the
Right.
land that's available, if people
What-
knew
I'm
how to
sorry,
use
what-
it.
what-
It's their land. And they might realize that they have more. I mean, they could raise bees, for example, maybe, instead of cucumbers.
Okay, maybe at 5. To me, this is a Pollyanna type of question, but
Yeah.
welcome to Durham, rooted in local food.
I think it just means that people in Durham don't see themselves as a community that grows local food. That they either don't know enough or they
I would
don't
agree.
see it as a community
Yeah.
that is,
Yeah.
that is characterized
Right.
by that, so.
I think I would disagree with this statement, not to go too far into statistics here, but even though the vast majority didn't strongly agree, the majority are either favorable or not against agricultural in Durham, which tells you there's no opposition or not a lot of opposition to that statement in my head, which is a favorable reading that I am taking away from this, is that if we were to help with more initiatives like Food Together Durham and more advertisement and outreach to include more farmers markets ideas and more agrarian style cultural events, you're going to get more influence with those folks because they're not against it. They're, blank slate, and they've already got at least 54 folks that said they want more active ag in their life, and I think that's encouraging.
I think what it says to me, it seems, is more that people still perceive farming and is the main local food production concept, as
Not
opposed
their
to
own household.
individuals and groups of individuals. That would be my takeaway there. So piles onto your thoughts as well, that, once we change people's perceptions of what local food really means or
And
can
I think
mean.
that this says that people are receptive to that change.
Yeah.
They're not opposed to it.
Yeah.
I definitely.
It definitely ties into like the 5B2, where just more folks wanted to see local food. I definitely think, obviously, the skew towards strongly agree is definitely a bit stronger. But yeah, I think it supports that point.
Either way, it's definitely a very favorable reading,
Right.
even if they're not like ready to burn the house down and build a barn.
Right.
I mean, there definitely seems to be in the responses an appetite for
Oh, sure. Yeah.
more, and I think,
And it doesn't say farms, it says residents.
yeah.
So
And I think
that's the
this
key.
is a huge win for the Food Together Durham concept, because with the largest inhibitions to starting more self-generating food production lifestyle is knowledge and land. Well, we've got mentors, and some folks have access to land, and if we're using those collaborative efforts, I think I would hope you'll find, I know if personal bias here, a significant inhibition to me getting more hands-on into making my own food consumption is the time cost for how much effort am I putting in to how much knowledge am I using to how much output am I producing. But if I can trust that somebody who knows what they're doing and can fill that void is going to guide me through that process, I'm more likely to join an initiative where I can trust that there's going to be output at the end, and I'm not just going to have 3 years of dry crops and not being able to produce anything that I can consume. And that's a waste of money, effort, especially when you're talking about like the stress on time management with money and children and lifestyle stuff. So I was definitely, I mean, as soon as you started going through these things and I started seeing the percentages, obviously the skew is a low sample size, but I mean, it's still pretty significant sample size for a small town survey. And, it's spread out all over the area. So it's not like you're only getting one neighborhood's responses and attributing it to the entirety of the town. I think you have, obviously I'm not looking at the actual distribution, but with the little data maps there, the urban areas had more responses and the rural areas had less responses, but they all still had responses, and I think that's encouraging. I definitely see this as a very big boon to Food Together Durham, yeah, I'm very grateful for the efforts you guys put on it, especially here in the extra in-person tabletop time to help get people, because awareness continues to be an issue for a society that has access to everything that man's ever known, and we have a phone in our pocket. We seem to be in disconnect with each other more than ever, and trying to get the word out there of like, hey, these are initiatives that are going on, is definitely going to be a recurring challenge. And so definitely with those recommendations of outreach, focusing more on food knowledge or food events is definitely a good recommendation. I appreciate the effort there, and I think this is a very value add.
So I'm curious, like one reflection, one question on this response, or on this question. I'm curious how many of those people who said that they have available time will change their mind if they have better knowledge of what it takes.
Sure.
And so I think that would be interesting to see, at least maybe out of that 53 or 54 who said they might want more information. How many of them said that time is their most available resource? 'Cause that's the least available resource for most people. Did you guys do crosstabs on this question in terms of where people responded? Was it kind of uniform across all the areas in Durham where there's strong agreement, or was there an area or two or three where you saw that there was really strong agreement that might be more of something that this commission can think about? Oh yeah, we should focus on these neighborhoods.
We don't have that, I don't think, on this slideshow or the appendix, but we can definitely pass that along. I know these responses too don't account the invitations we sent by mail, which is going to make the sample size more representative, so we can get that, but I don't think we have it up. I don't remember this being.
No.
Yeah.
I will admit that with just timing and classwork, I did not get to it with the distribution because it was 42 boxes of data, and then you have add the strings of, because they could, no, wrong question. I did not get to it. I can though, if you want that.
It'd be interesting to see whether there's one or two neighborhoods or tax area map regions where there's a cluster of those, like 90% of people said that they want to participate versus 10%.
Yeah.
I share Anton's views. I see this as a double-edged sword. If it's the I would like to see, are these people that aren't currently doing it? Or are these people who are already growing vegetables or whatever in their gardens?
Yeah, that we can definitely parse for too. It's definitely easier to parse for that and get that. But yeah, I'm a little curious too.
Could be both. It would be nice to have
Yeah.
both,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like if there's strong agreement in the same area where there's already people growing, and there's strong agreement where people are not growing, then it's a perfect combination.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe the next one, six.
Yeah. Question 6 was just where you live, so we didn't have that.
Okay.
This is a question. So question 7, on what products
Yeah,
you want to see.
this one is interesting. Vegetables, no surprise. And fruit. Of course, I'm bitterly disappointed about honey, but that's all right.
In this
It's
question,
hard.
did they have the ability to check more than one?
This
Yes.
was open-ended.
Open-ended.
Okay, thanks.
So I went through and I wrote down as many of the responses that I found, and then I add additional ones for future reference. It could be expanded upon to make it more inclusive as like to what anyone could put. Also, there's spelling errors. But I got as many as there were responses. I went through each one and added them.
Were the flowers edible flowers, or that just put in there? You've got 2 people responded flowers.
Well, they're edible to the bees.
Well,
One
all-
just
Well,
said
maybe that's
flower,
why.
Probably cut
and
flowers.
the other, I don't believe it was edible. It was something. But one just said flowers.
yeah, okay. Next, please. My guess is most people said sure.
At least it's that half.
Half of them, 54.
Maybe number 9.
Yep.
Yeah.
Liability insurance.
Yeah, I don't know how you solve some of those.
You don't.
Yeah, I don't know the need to
As a
do-
commission, we
Yeah.
focus on one or two of those things.
Yeah.
and-
I mean, I'd like to see the first bullet, but, yeah, that's demand and availability, but also the number of participants, active farmers, so. Maybe question 10, I think.
That was
That was the
um,
last, okay.
These are recommendations, but
Question, do any of you come from families or households that grow their own food? You do? Okay, a couple of you, yeah. So I imagine that this has had some effect on your own reactions to one another. You're in the game or you're not in the game in that sense, yeah. That's good, thank you.
Being the oldest person here, I think, I remember my grandparents having victory gardens right after Second World War. And when I'm gardening, I think of my grandparents. Good memory. Particularly some of the smells that come from gardening. Really nice.
Like money.
yeah, my grandfather's farm in upstate New York, right next to like I don't even know how many acres, Buffalo Farm. So I also have those memories of
But
going
yeah,
there. And,
picking tomatoes, there's
Yep.
a distinct smell,
yeah,
brings back
nostalgia.
powerful memories.
You're like Marcel
That's it.
Proust, bite into that Madeleine.
Oh, yeah. So, but I think, again, I think it's a lifestyle for some of us, certainly for me.
I have a more technical question. You guys went through the tax map, through like the database, the tax database. Do you have information on how many people live in each one of those blocks? Can you get that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we can get that.
Okay. Because it would be great to use that. I'm guessing you guys didn't weight any of those responses, right? Okay. It'd be great to go back, and I'm not saying that this is what you guys need to do. I think we can figure it out with the data, but it'd be great to weigh those responses just to try to get at some of that bias of where those responses came from. Because if we weigh them by the populations that live in each of those tax area locations, we can get a much more accurate representation of Durham as a whole, not just sort of if we had a lot more responses from one area, they would bias the whole set of results. So if you have those numbers, that would be great. And if you can align them to whatever the numbering is in the survey that you guys have put together.
I think we'd also need the non-response to weight.
So, I mean, it would get around some of the non-response bias because what it's going to say is, look, in a particular region in downtown, we have 7% of the population in Durham, but only 1% of people in the survey responded from that region. So what you do with the weighting is you say, well, we're going to count those responses that did come from that region more than the responses from some other area where we had a lot of responses, but fewer people actually live.
You just
So-
want between the square.
What's that?
You want between the square distributions, kind of to compare more.
It would give a much more generalizable sense of what Durham as a whole represents from these responses, rather than like the raw data which you guys have presented, which I think just looking at the map, it's going to align fairly well, but we can get up.
I think you still have to consider that it's a non-random sample, so there might be bias with the email list you sent out, so you can't necessarily generalize it.
It would give a better sense
Yeah.
than, the raw data.
The weighting helps. The weighting helps. That's sort of the use on the front end. You try to stratify where you ideally you would send more survey requests to areas that have more people, and then the back end you do the weighting to adjust for those non-response and potential bias of where those responses came from. So yeah, it's a yes, and it won't be ideal. You're absolutely right, but hopefully we can get a little bit better precision. So those data would be great if you have them. The just overall Durham, where the residents live in each one of those tax blocks.
What I'm imagining from what you're saying
Mhm.
is very manual of just looking in each square and counting from the, or you,
So where did you pull information? I guess when you guys were talking about mailing
Yeah,
to certain
so-
areas, where did you pull that?
Yeah, they helped me
information
get some addresses from the assessor's online database. That's what
Right.
happened, right?
from? Right.
And then I pulled out some addresses myself. So yeah, at this point, I would like to say that we mailed 470 postcards. Packers Falls Road, for example, that section of town where, Long Marsh and Cuts Road, that cluster, and again, that's what I did, or what we did, get
Yeah.
those addresses from the assessor's online database.
So how did you get those? Did you like just download, go one by one and copy and paste them?
randomly, yes.
Yes.
Or we pick streets.
So do you think
Okay.
these
So you didn't just
responses?
like bulk download?
No, but I can't.
Got it.
And then I can filter by streets.
If you can bulk down, you know what, spend like 10 minutes on it, and if you can't bulk download, just maybe the three of us or this group can connect over email, because I think we can probably get them from the town office, because I know they have to have those databases.
Is it
Um,
public?
I would imagine, I mean, it's on the internet, so.
Yeah. the
Anyway, we can
bulk
connect
download.
after.
Yeah.
So is it safe to assume we probably hit about 2.5% of
about
the
right.
adult population? If you hit a household, only one person in the household is going to respond. We have
Right.
about 16,000 people in Durham, that's 4,000
Yes.
possible respondents, right? And if you take that 100 into it, it comes out to about 2.5%. Is that a reasonable assumption, or am I like statistically off base?
I'd say that's reasonable. Yeah, I don't imagine, and we can't confirm that there's two folks who live in the same house that all both fill out the survey, but I'd say that's incredibly unlikely.
Yeah. That's not too bad. It's pretty
I think we
reasonable.
have
amount.
a good,
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
Anything else for the group?
No, I think it's a great job. Thank
thank
you.
you
for the
work there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, can I ask one more question? So for the 54 respondents, can you go back, is it 54?
Yep.
Yeah. Did you guys look into only those responses and how they responded to those questions, all other questions? Like, can we learn anything about those 54 interested people that we could, like, for them, is time the commodity or the resource that they can contribute most, or is it money, or is it something else? Like, what do they want to grow? Is that something like,
Yeah, we can easily break it down on the
Oh,
exported
neat.
Excel file. Just if they said yes, filter on that.
I could honestly do that in the next 5
Yeah.
minutes if you wanted.
That's pretty easy.
Terrific. I'd like to know.
Actually, or I can.
I'm
not
serious.
gonna say
I don't
no.
know about the
Yeah,
rest of
I'm
these
not gonna
guys.
say no.
if it's easy enough?
If it's quick.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just need to. Do you want to see the behind the curtain? I can tell all the data sets if I come up here.
Do we want to drive to the next topic and we'll give her the space, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
We can, but it's Diane and Carol, it's gonna be tough. Well, we can approve the March meeting minutes.
There you go. That'd be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody see any problems with the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Same.
I have to abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay. Okay, we have to wait for these guys and then wait for Diane.
Should we vote?
Hmm?
Should we vote on that? The minutes?
Acclamation.
Yeah, we have to.
We have to
We
vote
have to
on
vote
it.
on the minutes.
All in favor? Sorry about that.
No worries.
I don't do this very often.
Yeah.
But they were just a group by acclamation.
Or executive order.
Right.
Did Teresa give you any correspondence?
Nothing. And Tom, did you ever find out what's at the Thompson farm out in the field?
I did not. Sorry. Yeah. I saw students out there, but God, I will not forget this time. Right. Boy. Since we have a little, we're waiting, I wanted to ask this group about, I was approached by the UNH Foundation office, and alumni relations office, to see whether they could, during our farm day at one of the UNH sites, do an alumni event associated with the August 16th farm day. Any objections? So the Alumni Association for UNH wants to do some sort of alumni event at one of the UNH farm day sites. We usually have 2 or 3. Any objections from this group?
So would
No,
it be
be very
related to farming or just,
What's that?
would it be related to
The-
the air event?
I mean,
related to-
we would, as we usually do something at one of our farms, and then the Alumni Association wants to join in and maybe create some sort of activities for
Okay.
families who
All right.
are alumni in the
Okay.
area or might be coming in.
Oh, I
So-
don't know. That
So
sounds
not a
good.
kegger.
The answer is
I
yes,
have
but
not,
no
I have not
yes.
nailed down the details quite yet. So.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, some number of UNH alumni are farmers, and some other number are working in the food and agriculture area, and maybe some of
Could be,
those
yeah.
folks should be sought
Yeah.
to see if they would come to participate in this.
It'd be another promoter too.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
anything we can do to get the word
Just
out.
wanted to check with this group because I know that
Yeah.
this group organizes the event as a whole. So.
Yeah.
I have a question, probably a good time to do it. I'm wondering, with respect to the agricultural experiment station, if the UNH station is being affected at all by actions taken against Maine and the Maine agricultural experiment station in the last couple of weeks. Any effect here?
Yeah, no, not that I've seen or, nothing that's coming down from the federal government.
Okay.
I think in the next 6 to 8 weeks, there's been a flurry of appointments at the USDA, and I think that's going to finally speed things up in terms of their assessment of programs and whatever else they're assessing. So I think we're going to have a slightly better understanding of what the federal side of implications might be. Obviously, the House passed the State House passed HB1 and HB2 on the 10th, and I guess it's in the Senate, and we'll see what they decide to do. But that does have some significant cuts to UNH as a whole, which would impact all of UNH.
How closely are we formally linked to Maine in this Maine-New Hampshire relationship?
There are some grants that there are co-PIs, co-principal investigators, that were impacted where Maine was the principal investigator, and there was a couple of folks at UNH who were co-PIs on that, but I don't think that was related to the significant focus that has been put on Maine because of the political disagreements between the governor and the federal government. Yeah. So I don't think that those two things are related. I think it's very isolated.
Okay, thank you.
So, for better or worse.
Okay, I'll throw a piece in here. For the Stratford County Farm Bureau and the annual Farm Bureau breakfast, joint partnership with Durham Ag Commission and Lee Ag Commission. Thank you, Lee, for cooking crates all day long. Yeah.
That's good.
We had 362 people that we served. That's
That's
unreal.
good.
Let everybody know that money goes to youth and agriculture, any kids that need assistance or help.
Just to set the record straight, I did 1% of the effort. Ray LaRoche and Eric Saltel did the other 99%.
Yeah. Teresa was highly involved too with the serving, with all her 4-H kids.
The violinist was working his fingers off too.
It was a great turnout. They made a lot of money.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah.
I tried to get the Carhartt hat. Win it.
Plus, should throw a thing of thanks for the Durham Rotary Club. They donated $1,000 to youth and agriculture also. So that was added into the farm bureaus.
That's awesome.
That's good.
So good. It's a well profitable day.
Awesome.
So how many, 160, I'm sorry, 360?
362 served, besides the 18 other people.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the
Yeah.
the breakfast, not farm day, breakfast, yeah.
Yeah.
Ray, I believe we're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so the presentation is the full data set, and then this is the 54. So this is question 1 as it responds. So yeah, out of the 54, 33 said that they currently grow a portion of their food.
It's a 60-40 split.
So that's the 54, okay, yeah,
Oh, interesting.
okay.
Oop. Okay.
So question
Oh,
2,
it's not.
the reasons why you do not.
Land and knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The distribution's matching a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Time significantly ticked down, right?
Well, no, this is why they don't call it. So
Okay.
for them, the constraints are land and knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 54.
Yeah, above
Mhm.
that 4.
All right.
I am shocked to see any in the interest category for those 54.
Hmm.
That tracks.
Okay.
Yeah.
What they can contribute.
Mm.
They could click more than one.
Okay. So they can contribute time, knowledge, and expertise to all. Okay, 12, land.
That tracks.
That's pretty good.
So like 89%, 90% of them said that time is something that they contribute. Like that's a huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are these people that have all this time?
Well, I'm sure they're
It's
not
not
thinking about
me.
like an 8-hour day. They're probably thinking like
Yeah,
30
yeah.
minutes to an hour, a couple
Yeah.
days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But realistically, you know, a group of people, a couple hours a day during a week is huge.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I
pretty much
think-
what we do, except
I
for
get-
me,
Mm-hmm.
for some strange reason.
I get more excited the more they delve down here.
Yeah,
It's just validation after validation in my head.
yeah.
It's good that no answer is consistently 0.
Right.
Yeah, they're not just clicking or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question 7.
Hmm.
two honey guys.
And then they all should have answered question 8. And 23 of them have comments,
Okay. Not half. That's not too bad.
which we could go through, but up to you. Okay.
Sounds like after we get the postcards and get those responses, it's time to have like a,
Yeah.
get ready to make more pancakes. Invite these people over.
I don't do French toast.
It's French style, right? How dare you?
Okay.
Any
This is
other
great,
questions?
thank you.
Paul?
Yeah.
Any other?
Thank you very much, Josie. Very helpful.
Changed it.
Thank you.
Toast
Hope you're
job.
enjoying it.
Toast of them.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk with us or questions?
Oh, it's been terrific, thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you for the opportunity. We all loved working on this project. We're presenting a little more formal with an introduction and background next week on Wednesday. What time? Like 1 to 4 is our time slot?
We're at like 1:30, I think.
Yeah,
We're early.
yeah, 1:30. So, yeah,
Which building?
Mug?
Granite?
Oh, is it? I thought it was 333.
Oh, it's 3. Oh, goodness.
Alright, we alternate.
We could email Alberto.
Yeah, and,
Information.
yeah,
Hopefully
email me,
we all
I'll
end
send
up in the right
information
room.
to the position.
Thank you. Yes, all right.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Great.
Diane, it's your turn.
Good evening. I think I prefer to stand. Is this is on?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
fine. So we can hear this. Okay. Well, I'm here this evening instead of Emily Friedrichs. She couldn't be here this evening and asked me if I would come, and I said I gladly would. Emily called me, a few weeks ago and told me that she had great interest in looking at the Durham regulations for outdoor lighting. And this is because there may be a couple of large projects coming to the town of Durham. There may be. One involves UNH, and it's the West End project. And there's no application ready yet, but I think you've probably all seen some mapping of that area, buildings, et cetera, and some of the different purposes, especially including research there. And there may be some building in Durham because people are really interested in basically housing that is more workforce housing, that's more moderately priced, which is very hard to find, as we all know, in this area and in most parts of the country anyway. So that may be coming along. So it's nice to be ahead of the curve. It's nice to be ahead of time. And since Emily has a particular interest in this area, I think because of her work on the planning board and now on the town council, she's looking to work in this area. And I said I would be glad to help out, especially to help get the committee formed. And the reason I said that is John and I have lived here for 52 years now in the same house and just have enjoyed our lives in Durham. And because of that, we know a lot of people. So I said to Emily, there are 3 people right now I'd like to call and see if they're interested in serving on this committee. And the best way to get somebody on the committee is to talk to them directly, in person if you can. I think that does make a big difference. So Emily said that'll be fine. So that's kind of the second thing that I'd like to talk about tonight. The first thing is just a part of looking at lighting, outdoor lighting. And in this case, it's looking at residential outdoor lighting. And And in particular, what I'd like to talk about is yellow light bulbs. Do you all remember yellow light bulbs? Okay, they're more a product of the 50s that I remember. And I can still remember my father putting them in the front door and the back door in the sockets there. And it was really to keep the mosquitoes out of the house. Because whenever you had company, you'd open the door, and along with the people coming in, you could have a flock of mosquitoes. And so anyway, the yellow light bulb kept the mosquitoes away because mosquitoes can't see yellow. But they definitely see white. Okay. So I think we've probably all experienced the flying insects that fly towards white lights. And you'll notice if you watch them how they just start going around and around and around the light bulb. And they don't stop. And you can't shoo them away. They are absolutely mesmerized by that white light, to the extent that they could die on the spot. Or when the light goes off, or they drop to the ground or something, they are in a weakened state. And therefore, they might not be able to defend themselves if there is another insect that's looking at them for dinner, or they just don't have the energy to continue. So when we keep white lights on at night, a lot of insects, not all, but many of them, especially the flying insects, are attracted to them. And the word, I think, is obsession. They're just obsessed with the white light. And again, they become exhausted by their time with the white light, and this oftentimes leads to death. And so white light is really responsible for the death of insects just because it's white. On the other hand, yellow is a color that is not seen by flying insects. So putting yellow light bulbs in for outdoor lighting will not attract flying insects. Insects will be deterred from the yellow lighting because they don't see it. Yellow is out of the seeing range of flying insects. So it's a good light bulb to have in your outdoor area. Another consideration is about insect populations, and I think we've all heard of that. And we've heard that they're declining globally, not just in urban areas, but they're just declining globally. They have declined by 45% in the last 40 years. Okay, I don't have a citation for that, but I hope to do some more research, and citations will be there. So this poses a huge threat, not only to ecosystems, but think of farms. And I think I'd be very interested in talking to people who are doing farming, because to see if they are noticing on their land fewer insects. I know despite the fact that we have many more native pollinator bushes and flowers in our yard, and part of the ecosystem is just natural, and we keep it that way. So we've got a lot of blue stem grasses and a lot of other natural vegetation, native vegetation. We are seeing fewer bees, for example. And I don't know the insects well enough to go around, but we have been, with our little magnifying glasses, going around and looking for certain insects. So we depend on insects. We depend on bugs more than most of us could have ever guessed as we've progressed through life. Light pollution is contributing to the devastation of millions of insects. So using yellow outdoor lighting does not interfere with insects' lives. The critters can go about their lives in the dark, which they are made for, and we can still have plenty of light yellow light to go about ours. It's a simple and satisfying agreement that could be. Before we move on to just another topic, does anybody have any questions, or do you have any experience with outdoor lighting around your house?
So is the intent to try to get residents to use yellow light
Yes.
instead of white?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I didn't know if that included like, the developments in commercial areas too. Are you-
Right. Well, there's, again, this is going to be committee work. There's only so much you can ask or, formulate for people's property. And it couldn't go back. Okay. I think people would say it's grandfathered in, But this would definitely be, you can do it certainly on public property. The town can make that step, commercial property, and then working with developers to see that what can be done. For instance, a lot of lighting, as you see, and it's actually made this way, the fixtures that hold the bulbs, they point down. And of course, science has basically told us you need these fixtures to face down to have the light come down. If you put it up in the air, it really confuses the insects. They're not used to light shining up like that at night in the dark. So I think there's only so much you could do, but I think
How available are
the yellow light
the
bulbs.
yellow light bulbs?
I think it really depends where you shop. I've been to the hardware store in Dover, the one on Washington Street. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of it. And I bought yellow light bulbs there for our house. Obashan, yes, thank you.
You can buy yellow light bulbs, but a lot of houses got floodlights on them, which you cannot get a
Right.
yellow floodlight.
I think they do have some yellow floodlights.
Only the
No?
white or blue.
No?
They've got a blue tint too.
Good, thank you. I will look for that and ask about it, okay? Because it really is important to find good companies to work with. Of course, yellow light bulbs are LEDs, just as white light bulbs are. So you don't have to give up your savings in using electricity.
So
Yes.
I'm curious why the yellow light bulbs went out of style after the 50s. Was it an aesthetic thing? Because if it's an aesthetic thing, that's a tough issue to overcome.
That's a good question. Yeah, I really don't know what the reason.
While you were talking, was the question I asked the Google machine.
What
And
did the Google machine
The
say?
main things that they listed off at me was white light is more comfortable yellow light is more comfortable, so white light is more productive, apparently.
It's got more luminous.
Yeah, you can see more, you're more alert, and then aesthetics. So
I was also wondering in public places whether it's a safety issue as well, right? So you're thinking about the West Edge, you're thinking about new developments. If it's a safety issue where the yellow light is less luminous, then I'm not sure how to balance that.
Right. And that's why I can tell you that two people who are interested in the committee have been in the electrical engineering department at UNH. One's retired and one is the chair. And the third person has an engineering background, and I think he knows a lot about lighting too, but I'll talk about them in a minute. But that's a very good question. So that seems, it's brighter. Probably the light goes further, I'm thinking. Because I look at the yellow light bulb and I drive it. People at the door, it's fine. In the driveway, fine. If you're going all the way out to the street, you can't see probably as much as the white light bulb. Yeah. Okay, I want to mention the three people that are interested in being on the committee. One is Mike Carter, who's a retired professor from the electrical engineering department. And when I first talked to him, he said, well, I really don't know a lot about lighting. Then I'm going as fast as I can taking notes on what he's saying. Besides knowing a lot about lighting. And he knows a lot of people who work in the lighting field. And he has a relative who's a developer And they have lots of talks about all kinds of things in development, and one of them being lighting. So lots of resources to go to, on-the-ground resources. Mike probably can't be a real active person on the committee, but he'll be a consultant. I find that committees are getting consultants, local consultants, which is great.
Diane, friendly ordinance is kind of like a contradiction of terms. Most people have an aversion when they hear the word ordinance.
The word.
Ordinance.
Oh, ordinance, yes, of course, because that's always thou shalt not, usually.
So would this be an ordinance telling people that they cannot have white lights, they must use yellow?
And I doubt that that would, see what you all think, but I don't think it would go that far. I would think the main thing would be education.
Okay, but there's education, I mean, again, ordinance just is going to turn people off.
Oh, yeah, oh, right, exactly.
So
I heartily agree.
Bug-friendly ordinance, it's just the words don't go together.
No.
Bug-friendly recommendations.
Yes, exactly. And some positive reinforcement. I'm not saying to do this, but if there were a map of Durham and it had residents on it, where residents are, just like the map out here does, that John Hatch made, but it's only to a certain time period, a certain year. And residents got a little star on them. I'm thinking, something that just shows they switched to this, whatever. Just some kind of positive reinforcement could be good.
Tax incentive.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. Have the town buy the bulbs.
Diane, can I push you back about 10 years?
Sure.
I believe you were on the council then.
Please.
When the town went from metal halide streetlights to LEDs, you remember that? Our first set of LEDs that we had put in were a yellow light. And downtown wasn't lit up enough. We had to tear out all the LEDs and replace them with white LEDs.
Okay. And so it wasn't lit up
It
enough?
didn't
Not bright
illuminate
enough.
enough light for the downtown area.
Okay, right. So are there regulations that say that the
I don't know if there's regulations, but I remember the job of taking
I
out the
remember they came
yellows
out,
and putting
yes.
the whites in.
Yes. Well, it'll be interesting to see if yellow lights have improved.
Well,
for-
I think for a household, for a
Yes,
front door
oh, yes.
light, a yellow light is fine. A driveway light is fine for your household, but
Yes.
when you start getting into town issues about lighting up parks or whatnot, I think the white light is what they're gonna recommend, and
Okay.
I think a yellow light is gonna be a hard sell for the town.
I
Right.
think
Right.
white lights are safety. That's probably.
Well, that was part of taking the yellow lights back out for
Exactly.
safety, because we couldn't illuminate enough of the downtown.
That would be an overriding concern.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think the educational aspect and the voluntary nature of it definitely is something that's worthwhile to continue to engage with people who have concerns about
Right.
the insect
Right.
population and the
Right.
climate activism type stuff. And I definitely don't see any harm in it.
Right. Exactly.
I like your idea of a tax incentive. I was going the other way. I was thinking about the composting program and maybe offering a household 4 light bulbs through some sort of program that Durham can fund, because I know Durham is always like they have gobs and gobs of money. Right?
Yes.
No, but I mean, but maybe the tax incentive where you don't have to spend the money and you still spend it in a different way, but. On the revenue side, not on the cost side. But I mean, that could be an interesting solution to get the education plus the behavioral change. I like that
Yes.
one.
Hey, money talks.
It sure does.
Yeah.
And behavior is hard to change in all of us, yeah.
Or you could find the type of light that drives humans crazy and they start bumping into everything.
I think we're already using that pretty good.
I think if you're in a marshy area around town and you have mosquitoes galore and whatnot, and you do a lot of family events,
Yes.
it is a prime
Yeah,
change to
Right.
go to a yellow light if you're in that type of an area.
right.
I could see people you know, motivating other people, because, you know, if they happen to go visit them and they're going, wow, no mosquitoes around, what's the deal? Well, it's the yellow light, or,
And they might not even know.
yeah,
Especially if there is a cost savings when you're coming to pesticide management.
yeah, oh, yeah,
If that is a tangible benefit, that would be an easy sell.
absolutely.
And a lot of us forget that there's a real value in many, many of the insects. We can all name insects that are undesirable, but there are many, many more species that are very desirable, that fit into the ecosystem, that we actually depend upon in many, many indirect ways. We don't eat insects, but many of the
Yeah.
creatures that we eat insects.
Yes.
So,
And many of the animals that we enjoy, especially the birds, they need those insects. Okay.
Because their populations are declining
I mean, I haven't seen
Right.
as
in
many-
line
nearly
with
as
the
many birds
insect
in the backyard.
depopulation.
I'm happy to report that honeybees are sensible. They go inside the hive at night.
And they're yellow,
Sorry.
partly.
I'll tell you when we can get rid of those ticks. I'm tired of those.
They can't be found.
So on my to-do list is to talk to the entomologist at UNH, because I want to find out what kind of look at white light and the insects that will die because they are so mesmerized by that white light and lose energy and die. And that's not all of the ones that go around light bulbs, but it is a fair amount. How many are pollinators? How many are not? So I think that's a puzzle piece also, what the entomologists have to say. So there's a little bit of research to do here.
I've definitely noticed a decline in insect populations over the last several years. Just visibly different.
Okay.
And I don't know if we can contribute at all to weather, but certainly. I mean, June bugs, when I was a kid growing up,
I know.
June
Oh, yeah.
bugs everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And I haven't seen a June
No.
bug
Well,
in
it isn't
years.
June yet.
Maybugs.
Maybugs?
Now they're Maybugs.
Oh. I haven't seen them in May either.
Bad joke.
So I'll just mention that Mike Carter, in talking with him, we talked about this issue of yellow lights. And he said, well, come over to my house. I have them at the front door and the back door and one on the side that they need for some reason. So I thought, okay, here's a professor of electrical engineering, here's something about lighting, and he thinks that this is the right way to go for his household. So the action is the thing that I think we're always interested in. You know, we have to do the knowledge, the education, whatever, but then what choices, you know, do we all make? The second person that I talked to was John Gianforte from UNH, who is the head of the observatory at UNH. And he does the programs to see the night sky. So he's very interested. He lives here in Durham, he teaches, and he, as I said, runs the observatory. And he's very interested in dark sky. You know. And he said, well, I don't have any lights on outside at all, ever, except when I know somebody's coming to the door in the evening. That's the only time. But he said, I have to tell you, I do have a white light there because it's never on. He said, in fact, they go to the extent that they dim their lights in their house, close curtains, so the light from the house doesn't go outside. So they're like super careful about that. But it's part of their way of life. Not just a profession, but a way of life. And then the third person I talked to was John LaCourse, who's from Lee. He's a selectman in Lee, and he is now the chair of the electrical engineering department at UNH. And this is what happens when you talk to people, right? He said, well, the town of Lee, we just went over all of our regulations for outdoor lighting. I said, wow, I called you at the right time. So the head of their planning department will come and speak to the committee and offer, you know, the new ordinances that they have, if they've changed any ordinances, what they are, and be able to look at those and discuss those with the committee here. in Durham. So that was very good news. And he told me that the planning director really wants to work with neighboring towns. That's always good news, yeah. So there's a real sharing of information. Or yes, we had the same discussion. And in our town, it kind of went like this. Excuse me. Those are the three people. And if you all, anyone here is interested in this topic, or if you know of anyone who's interested or who has some background, because one thing I'm going to go after also is alumni from UNH who took to the lighting field and works for companies. And find out, one of the things to think about is what's next in lighting. We've got LEDs, what's next?
Night vision optics, everybody.
Diane,
Yes.
are you familiar, or have you reached out to folks in UNH Energy Department? So they're not in the faculty, they're in the facility side. So Adam Kohler is the head of UNH Energy. So he is responsible for KOEHLER.
Okay, sure.
And so I know they monitor energy all the time. They know
Right.
where light bulbs are, how much light is being generated. So I think, especially if you're thinking about some of the newer projects that UNH is working toward,
Yes,
he could
thank
be a
you.
great starting point to say, how can we make this the
Right.
best possible way to build this for the community?
Right.
And I know that both Adam and then there's another person there, Matt LaRue, they think about sustainability a
Yes.
lot.
Yes.
So I think they
Yes.
would be very much open to a conversation
Excellent.
with the constraints that it needs to be safe and effective and cost effective and all of that. But I
Right,
think
exactly.
getting in touch with that facility side of UNH
Exactly.
would be good as well.
And oftentimes, you talk to somebody, they'll say, well, is that more expensive? Because people see that as a dividing line. But no, it's so important to talk to people who are into this kind of thing day by day and are into sustainability too, and et cetera. So thank you for that reference.
Yep.
Of course, the connection to agriculture is the role of insects in agriculture. It's an enormous role that we don't usually think about very much, unless you're a farmer.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time
Thank you.
and consideration. And I think it's going to be, well, I think Emily will make it an exciting committee and with hopefully some new ideas out there and new ideas to go about lighting that are better for the insects, better for people too. Yeah. And safe, absolutely safe. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to old business, residential outreach. Is that
So that was it, the
capstone?
capstone students, the
So that's-
presentation.
Yeah, that,
Okay.
So you sent out the note cards, right? And that went out?
Yeah,
Okay.
so 2 weekends ago, the postcards
Perfect.
went
Okay.
out.
Okay, and those are
So
due
they
when?
haven't looked at those
Yeah.
yet, so I did have a chance to ask how many
Yeah.
additional responses we got from that mailing.
When were they due?
The 18th, this coming Friday.
Okay. Cool. That's awesome.
So next month, we'll have more information. Okay. Animal capacity?
Yeah, working on the plant side of it now, as I mentioned last meeting, to figure out what area one would need to grow 2,000 calories worth of food in all the macronutrient levels, and it turns out it's about 4,000 square feet.
excuse me, Dave, the agenda had animal capacity estimator.
Yeah, that's
already
that
done that.
spreadsheet thing.
Yeah.
That's sitting there waiting for us to do something with.
Okay, but
And
you're now.
I'm
shifted to
broadening it out
planting?
for my own interest into what would it take especially as we develop this collaborative agriculture initiative, what would it take for people? How much land do they need? And what techniques would improve upon that? And
So what
to
would
come
you
up,
call this? It's not animal capacity.
yeah,
It's
it's
Calorie capacity.
yeah, I'm not sure what we'll call it. Something to do with it'll be the plant side. So yeah, animal and plant estimator. I don't.
Well, I just think
Some-
we got a workshop record.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah, exactly. I'm
yeah,
not
no, no,
sure
I
what, something like that, just in the other side of it, the
Okay.
plant side of the,
That side as well, sure.
yeah. So it turns out about 4,000 square feet per person, 2,000 calories a day. And of course, you have issues that need to be addressed, like in the spring when you've run out of potatoes and other things, what's going to carry you through till new things come up. And it doesn't account for any extra stuff you might need to grow in order to avoid issues with bad seasons, whatever. So those are the kinds of things that need to be done. But it's a surprisingly small area.
This is a assumption here being 100% consumption, just in
100%.
time.
Yeah.
So you're not storing it, you're not,
No, you'd have to do some
Yeah,
kind
you
of
have to
storage
store
and
it.
so
Mhm.
forth in order to maintain it for the year.
Mhm.
But that would be, and I've got all the different vegetables figured out, and fruits, nuts, seeds, grains, and what space is required for each of those to generate approximately
So 4,000 square feet per family,
per person.
per person?
Yeah.
Person.
Whoa.
But that's everything. That's all. You wouldn't need to go to the grocery store essentially. But you'd also be eating in season, which is something people aren't used to
Mhm.
anymore. So there'd be a lot of whining about that. But I think it's an interesting sort of approach to convincing people that it's not as difficult to grow a portion of your food.
That's 40 by 100 feet though.
Yeah.
It's a third of an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a family of four, that's. a
No,
third
you
of an
said
acre.
per person.
Yeah,
4,000 square
so,
feet per
yeah,
person.
so for a family of four,
Right.
it would be about a third of an acre.
Yeah.
So 16,000 square feet.
And I'm incorporating it this year with our collaborative group, and we have about 10 people involved. Some are family members that aren't really involved. They're, like kids. It's hard to get them out there. But, and so we're incorporating that this year to see how it kind of plays out and see what issues arise.
So I'm curious how you're incorporating things like soil types and
Right.
irrigation and fertility and just the topography.
Yeah, there's all
the
those
sun,
issues we need to
shade,
start,
Yeah.
working into the concept.
Okay.
But
This is assuming like just generic, fairly good producing soils.
yeah, yeah, I think so. And the consistent light that you might, 6 hours or so of sunlight a day kind of thing. But it's pretty surprising how much you can generate on a small space. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah.
Bee-friendly?
There's a grim report by the Department of Agriculture, USDA. This past winter, nationwide, there's about an 80% mortality in beehives. It's due to a variety of factors, global climate change, pesticides, herbicides, varroa mites, fungus diseases, nosema, and potentially some new strains of bacteria and viruses. Other than that, things are well in hand. Here in the Seacoast region, based on the number of hives I either manage or mentor, it's about 90% this year.
Lots of
Worst
hives
year
over the winter.
I've ever experienced in over 50 years of beekeeping, including the 2 hives at Woodman Farm. One absconded, which is colony collapse disorder. The other was nosema.
Is it a drought situation? Was that the bigger issue?
No.
We had a drought for 2 months last summer, but that wasn't listed in this report. I'm sure it's a factor, but that global climate change, I guess, is collectively.
Right.
As soon as I learn anything about the delivery of the nukes at Merrimack Valley Apiaries and Billerica, I'll let people know, or you should find out as well, but I have no update. That's it, right?
Okay, Garden and farm Mentos, nothing new. Okay, land stewardship.
Land Stewardship Subcommittee is spending a lot of time on an analysis of each of the units under the town, the properties, the allowed uses, and the restrictions. And of course, there's very little, if anything, in here related to agriculture. The the first place is the Doe Farm, which hasn't had agriculture in 100 years. And of course, the Wagon Hill Farm, no mention of the fact that it does have the agriculture, the community-supported agriculture.
It's a dog park now, John.
Dog park,
Yeah,
right.
Dog
Yeah.
park.
That's really what it's become to a great extent.
Wagon Hill Dog Park.
Yeah. So one thing we could say is obviously all of these areas are supporting insects, as we were speaking before, that are vitally important to agriculture and to the ecosystem. That is true.
And we do have a big community garden there.
Yes, we certainly do.
So
We certainly do.
it's not all dogs.
Yeah, right. But anyway, they're deeply involved in that. They were much more agriculturally involved probably 12 years ago, 11 years ago, when Teresa asked me to serve as a representative of the Ag Commission on that group, but they're not oriented in that way.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Community gardens.
Yeah, we have our first garden work day, April 26th. That'll be our first day, sort of open day. Yeah, so we'll all be out there. I have a killdeer nest in my bed, so I probably won't be growing anything for quite a while, actually.
Well, you won't be bothered by deer.
Does anybody hear about the community garden?
I don't get, I haven't heard anything about that, and I don't know, I don't know what the status of that is, so.
Okay. Any other business?
Got farmers markets,
Oh.
but I don't know.
Anybody go to the
Does
farmers
anybody know when they
market?
start?
Well, they've been going all winter in terms of the indoor.
Well, no, I'm gonna,
But,
okay, well,
They should be starting in the beginning of May.
Yeah,
I would
that's
think.
what I thought they were.
Yeah.
Any other business?
I have one saved around here if I could. So the town council is doing several things, but one of the more closer alligators to the vote is the town council goals for the next FY or for the next calendar year. Last year I put on that attempt to local consumption up to a 30% within the national or within the regional goal. Are there other agricultural perspectives that I should try to float to the town council as a priority?
I missed the first part, Curtis. What are the goals?
So the town council goals, the lining document from what we're gonna ask questions on for the rest of the year, essentially.
Okay, but it's an open-ended question, is that what it is, or?
Right now, we're writing the goals, and so I'm asking if there are anything that you guys want or would want me to help fight for to see on the town council. And that could be no, that's totally fine, because you're gonna have your own independent commission goals that are, doing their own thing. But if there was something I should be aware of or I should be trying to advertise for, I'm willing to make that expenditure of oxygen.
One that we've been talking about is we would like some, I don't know, perhaps the council can help us with this, but we're talking about, encouraging animal agriculture, and every help, that we can get would be much appreciated.
Well, I can definitely socialize that. I don't know if a goal would be the target of that, but I can definitely keep talking about it and making sure I'm presenting it, particularly at the town council roundtable, as a topic of interest for y'all.
I can think of one off the top of my head, and that is any new development like the affordable housing, which I guess is on permanent hold right now, or semi-permanent hold or whatever. Any new development should include some community garden set aside.
I would just say, any new developments to have an awareness around land access and growing food.
I mean, I look at
Roger.
our Riverwoods. There's available sites there, could be gardens. Now, there may be another structure built, new residence, but in the meantime, there's a vacant spot there, they could have gardens.
Mhm.
Right now, it's underutilized. Well, take it back. The wildflowers are occasionally utilized, but I think that would have been a useful thing on the affordable housing. You know, you set aside conservation portions, well, a community garden could be something.
Yeah. So I don't know that that's a town council goal, but what I think it's a great idea, and so what I'm gonna do with that is I'm gonna take it and talk to Barrett, talk to the planning board, see if we can't have that somehow incorporated on the dang schematic. They make sure their plan they submit for development, making sure we add a block
Yeah, well,
for.
even if it's not under consideration, or not currently, it's something that could be thought of.
Specifically brought out,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it makes sense.
So this is kind of related to your question, Curtis, but also more broadly. So in the last month, I think between the last meeting and this one, the New Hampshire State Agricultural Strategic Plan came out, right? There's a gajillion goals there. In that sense, it's
too many, but
perhaps slightly less than a gajillion too many goals, but that's, whatever. And I think there's like 130 topics there. And depending on when you need this information, could that be something for this committee to consider and to look at that strategic plan and say, these are the top 3 that we think are important for our community, that we could align with the state or potentially have that relationship with the Department of Ag, with other state agencies, and in that way make that connection and make it an actual town goal that's incorporated into the town goal as well, where look, we're actually fitting into that bigger puzzle, and it's already, we're just putting our own twist on how we're contributing to making those goals happen. So that might be a good place, just in general, for this commission to look for and look to, but maybe to your question.
I definitely think that's a great idea. I think in my head, I immediately see dollar signs, because when you have agricultural state goals, hopefully that means there's funds attributed to it that we could potentially utilize.
You're not from New Hampshire,
Yeah,
are you?
I know.
Where have you been?
Yeah. But maybe even if it's influence and reference. But something that helps grease the skids a little bit more to get a little bit more traction, or existing awareness, visibility, infrastructure. I think it's a great idea, and I would love to see that as an agenda item for next ag meeting.
So is the council actually working on this 30 by 30 thing, which I think is, what are the other 70% going to eat is my question always. So if you do the math, for instance, in town, there's maybe a little over 3,000 square feet per person that lives in Durham, based on the census numbers of ag land. Now, it's not necessarily used as ag land, it's based on the prime ag land and soils that we are, that the state and our local population is interested in maintaining. And that's down from, I think it was about 2 acres per capita back in the early days of Durham. So
the ambiguity and the unattainability of that goal is due directly to me, not necessarily to the council working towards something that's unsustainable. I pulled that goal based off of the Northeast Agricultural newsletter that they pushed out saying,
Yeah.
hey, these are our goals and this is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And the intention of me getting that goal on there, which
Yeah.
is open for refinement if it's not, if it's just laughable. But
No.
what
I think it's a
wanted was to
laudable
bring-
idea. I think the problem
Yeah.
comes in when you start to think about, okay, there will be climate refugees moving anywhere from where they are now, and that means population increase, that means less land, workforce housing is going to drag a bunch of land down, and there'll be more mouths to feed, less land available to feed them. So that's where I begin to wonder, you know, it sounds like a great idea,
Mm-hmm.
but the practicality of it, I don't think is
No, that
realistic.
definitely makes sense as the
Yeah.
restructure of it. I think the
Yeah.
intention behind it was to bring agricultural to the main administrative level of awareness.
Yeah, well, I
And to
think
make
it's
it
important.
more of a focal talking point
Right.
for decision-making and less of an afterthought as the commission
Right.
presents.
And I think that's
Um,
where you got to be.
And
yeah.
so I'm happy to rework that because I'm not in love with it, and I
Yeah.
don't know what the mechanics would be to even measure that metric to say we were successful. I am definitely open to ideas, whether tonight or on email, on something. I'm really invigorated by the Food Together Durham concept and trying to make Durham more resilient by itself. You know,
Right.
even if, you know, we can't get a full a significant percentage of the population consuming off of their own production, every percentage point we take is less logistics and supply that we have to transport in. And that's less, you know, evacuation or less FEMA aid that we have to worry about supporting.
Right.
Right.
Because
You
that's
know.
kind of why the collaborative idea kind of got generated, was this idea that we don't have enough actual ag land to feed everyone we have now, so people could start using a portion of their properties or in combination with others, a way to generate or actually lift up the available land area for food for people.
Yeah, I'll try to
Yeah.
brainstorm and resubmit a council
Yeah.
goal. I have to do it this week, but obviously it's not gonna get voted on because it's contentious. But
Mm.
as I shape this, I'll try to push it back out to you guys to get concurrence, because this is for you. I mean, it's for us all, but I am trying to
Mm.
represent the Agricultural Commission in fighting for this particular line item.
Yeah.
And so I would definitely have more ammo with it being
I can
supported.
say something for that. All relates to what everybody said. I think you need to do an active farm protection act or something in this town to protect what's active to this point before they go under. I
Okay.
mean, there is nothing in Durham that protects us. Other than if you sell your development rights, your farm won't be developed, but there's nothing to assure the next generation that it's feasible, or, you know, are you gonna be taxed to death or whatever in this town to. for the
So is this some type of tax incentive for transfer of
I don't know if you
inheritance?
wanna call it a tax incentive. 'cause,
Yeah, and my knowledge of the tools is
you
very
know,
limited.
We're under current use, but the state is trying to do away with current use.
Okay, so I see where you're coming from now.
And if that ever happens, whatever active farm we have now will be done.
Thank you for that point.
Also, providing a spotlight on the very, very high-value agricultural soils of that land that's recently been talked about for another housing development is something that this commission should be thinking a lot about, I think.
Well, I brought that up when they came in and spoke to us about that
Right.
whole thing. The idea that, you know, the land that gets used for building houses is the same stuff that's used for agriculture. And that maybe we ought to be rethinking our approach to, you know, shallow to bedrock issues, and maybe houses should be pinned to rock instead of good soils. I mean, they do it in other places.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of those things maybe need to be considered.
Well, some of the best agricultural soils in Durham are under threat right now.
Oh, absolutely. And have been.
Yeah.
I've got a graph that I plotted for the change in agricultural land availability over time since 1790 to present day, if you're interested in having that for show and tell. And what we used to produce in the only data you have is county level, but it's interesting. We used to produce a lot of wheat and other grains here, and there's a correlation between the decline in our production here in this area and the opening of Iowa, for instance, as the first wheat belt. And then, of course, Iowa became the corn belt when Kansas became the wheat belt and so forth. So there's a direct correlation to that. It appears to that, which is interesting. So that tells us that we have grain growing potential here in the event that grains are less available from other jurisdictions. So,
That would be a topic that would be good for you to do for this committee. What
Oh.
you did in Lee.
oh yeah, that.
I
Okay.
thought that was excellent what you did.
Yeah, thanks. That was fun. I'm getting to do it before the, I think it's the alumni, or no, not the alumni, but the retired professors and stuff. They got in touch with me after I did that over there, because I think Tom Lee probably
Yeah.
put them onto it. And so they want me to do it in October. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to do it if we're all still here. And that was before all the fun that we've experienced in the last couple of weeks. So
I mean, I didn't ask the question, but I did hear Leah Alexander mention nukes very casually, and then we just like moved on in the topic, and everybody seemed cool with it. So I was like, all right.
yeah, talk about bright lights.
Any other business?
Well, unless you want to sit around and joke about stuff.
Motion to adjourn here?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
All right.